simple little things, like cordless drills and a mixer on it. They're using it to feed calves. It just takes a bit of the work out of the mixing of the milk. Some farmers purchased milk carts recently, and they find that's working very, very well for them in order to feed their calves. So simple little things like that. Other things we see farmers when they get calves out to grass, they might have a plastic meal bin and to fill the meal out of that, just to save dragging meal across the fields to calves. So simple little things like that, to try and cut back on the workload. It gives you more time for monitoring your calves for any signs of illnesses or disease.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc DairyBeef podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan, and with calving kicking off at many dairy farms, on this week's episode I'm joined by Teagasc DairyBeef 500 advisor Tommy Cox to discuss what are the key areas that you need to focus on for sourcing calves and rearing them up to weaning. Tommy, you're very welcome. Farmers rearing dairy beef calves in the programme will be getting ready in the coming weeks. What are the key things that farmers need to look out for when sourcing calves?
Close to 2,500 calves are reared across the DairyBeef 500 farms annually. So look, just when you're sourcing a calf, what you want is a problem-free animal, an animal that isn't going to give you any bother, right throughout the rearing phase. Ideally, look at what our farmers are doing. They're buying them from a trusted source. So they're buying directly off farms, which they've been dealing with for years, So they have a relationship built up there, and they're happy with the calf they're getting. Look, what you're looking for a calf that's good and healthy, obvious signs, clean, damp nose, bright eyes. He's alert when you walk into a pen, and no visible signs of any illnesses or ailments such as scour, navel ill or anything like that. So any calves like that, our farmers would be avoiding them. Look, a big thing that we're looking for in recent years, is genetic makeup of the calf. We have the new CBV there now, so that's a tool that our farmers will be using, and they'll be looking for calves with sires recorded against them. Generally, they're looking for calves that's within the 4 to 5 star bracket across the breeds.
And the commercial beef value, how can farmers access the details of the calves for that?
Yeah, so look, it's available on any any dairy farmer that has a Herd Plus profile. So an ICBF Herd Plus profile, the CBV, the commercial beef value is available right across that. So any farmer that's going to a farmer to buy calves, he should be able to ask for access to that CBV profile, and that will give him an indication of the star rating of the calves.
That's great. And management when the calves arrive on the farm is very important, Tommy, particularly the first 24 or 48 hours. What are farmers in the programme doing to come over issues in that time?
Yeah, so look, Catherine, most of our farmers would be sourcing calves relatively local, so there isn't a massive amount of stress being put on calves travelling long distances. So they're sourcing calves within an hour or so where possible. So that's, I suppose, it leaves the transition from one farm to the other a lot smoother. Where calves are traveling a small bit further, they're offered electrolytes, directly after coming onto the farm for the first feed, and then the milk replacer or feeding starts in after that.
And then the milk replacer, selecting the correct milk replacer is really important. What should farmers be aware of?
Yeah, look, selecting the right milk replacer, look, it's hugely important. It's the main part of the calf's diet. So look, it's the basics, probably the basic principles that when you're selecting a milk replacer, you want protein content in excess of 20%, an oil content of between 18 and 20%, a NASH content of in around 8% or thereabouts, a fiber content of no greater than 0.15%, and then I suppose the big one that you're looking for is the milk derived proteins, either from skim, milk powder, or from whey protein. So they're your two probably key areas. Look, it's probably a simple one, and it might be one often overlooked by farmers, but you want a powder that's easily mixed as well. That you can mix the concentration of it correctly, and that there's no residues left on mixing equipment, because if that's the case, that the formulation isn't completed correctly, and the calves aren't getting the correct consistency of milk replacer.
And there's huge variation across all the farms with regard to the different milk feeding systems and the different methods. What are the key advice for farmers?
Yeah, look, there is with farmers rearing calves and automatic feeders, with farmers rearing calves on individual single teat feeders, so that's the huge variation across. But look, the big thing is to continuously monitor your calves regardless of the system, and then the hygiene, that your cleaning equipment is regularly cleaned out, it's properly washed. That the teats are continuously checked, that they're on the automatic feeders, that they're working correctly, and even your teat feeders, that they're correctly working, that they're not frayed, or they're not frayed, or they're not damaged.
For farmers that's feeding once a day or twice a day, Tommy, how are they being managed, or is there any differences in performance?
Yeah, so look, so we have some farmers that will be feeding both. None of our farmers would be generally feeding once a day till after the calf is at least 35 days old or greater, So, and then they're stepping back the amount of milk replacer after that. But they will be feeding the 6 liters a day up to the calf is at least 35 to 40 days of age, and then they will be stepping back the milk replacer. So after 35 days, you could cut back just with some farmers just cutting back the amount of milk powder that they're feeding. That's provided that the concentrates that the calf is eating is the concentrate amount the calf is eating is increasing.
And that's key, I suppose. What steps should farmers be taking at that early stage to develop the calves rumen relay?
Yeah, so look, like as you alluded to earlier on, the milk replacer is definitely an important aspect of it, but developing the calf rumen is the area where we're trying to do, So, to get that calf set up, that he'd be able to go out and utilize grazed grass at pasture the first summer, and right throughout his life cycle. So developing that calf, so getting the calf onto a palatable starter calf ration, as soon as he arrives on farm, keeping that starter ration fresh and clean, and try and entice intake. And then I suppose weaning the calf, then once the calf, it's most of our farmers generally would be weaning the calf more so on weight as opposed to age. So once the calf is eating, in excess or close to 2 kilos of meal per head per day, that they generally, yeah, they're stepping back the amount of milk replacer, and they're, once the calf hits generally 80 to 90 kilos, they're taking them off the milk replacer. But they are eating that high level of ration, and that's what's developing the rumen. So that's a key area. Once the calf's rumen is developed, you shouldn't have as many setbacks out at grass. He should motor on. With some farmers, then it's straw as opposed to as the hay, to prevent that pot belly occurring in calves. So it's an easier roughage for calves to feed on and digest, and it's more preferred than hay.
And farmers are feeding milk replacer at that time, Tommy. How important is water?
But water is crucially important. It's important. It's important for the development of the calf's rumen. It's important to keep hydrated, and that'll also entice the concentrate intake, and that's what you're looking for, to try and increase that concentrate intake.
And management of the calf house is something that you've placed a lot of focus on in the past number of years, Tommy. What are some of the issues that you've seen?
Yeah, so look, on farms, look, the reality is on a lot of farms just rearing calves, it's not really purpose built calf houses that's in operation. So they're sheds that's there on the farm that are converted some way or another to accommodate calves. So look, the key areas probably that you're seeing is, the ventilation. There isn't probably adequate ventilation in some of the sheds, and what we mean by ventilation is, air moving over the animal, and taking any noxious odors or any bacteria, and cleaning that, and keeping the environment for the calf fresh and clean. And ventilation. And on the opposite end of that, then I suppose you have drafts, where air is actually directly hitting the calf and causing a chill at them, So that's something that you don't want either. So, to try and strike that balance where the air is moving over the calf, just keeping the bacteria and keeping the air fresh and keeping the environment fresh for the calf, preventing any illnesses such as your respiratory diseases, So that's probably one big area. Other area that we're probably seeing that, there mightn't be adequate drainage or adequate floor slopes on some of these sheds, So it's difficult to keep the environment dry and clean for the calves. So that's what you want. You want a clean, dry environment for calves to maintain health.
And then the early diagnosis and disease prevention, that's really critical for the health of the calf. What protocols would you be recommending for farmers this spring?
Yeah, so look, definitely it's crucial that if a calf gets a setback, during the calf rearing phase or during the initial couple of months on farm, he's generally never going to perform to his maximum potential. So look, we the farmers there that has high levels of vaccination programs in place, so there might be uh, administering an intranasal RSV and PI3 vaccine a couple of days post arrival, and they'd be following that up with a booster or with a primary and secondary course of a pneumonia vaccine then after a month or 6 weeks as well. With the farmers also vaccinating for IBR and administering an oral drench in to prevent coccidiosis as well. So with other farmers in, they wouldn't be actually vaccinating as much. They might be just giving the single intranasal vaccine against the RSV and the PI3 and giving an IBR vaccine, and they're getting away with that. But it's all sport specific to the farm. But look, the vaccines are only as good as the environment the calves are in, and it won't really hide poor management. It'll assist, keeping your calf healthy, but good management is crucial to that.
In relation to the general routine management and day to day on the farm, what advice have you for farmers?
The important thing is to keep your calves healthy and maintain performance. Like the reality is the sheds is there on farms at the current time. Unless there's major work going to be done on the next month or 6 weeks, it's you generally the sheds you have, they're going to have one thing. I'd say to farmers, if they can get their flow in above the calves, maybe moving a few sheets or putting in a bit of Yorkshire board and something like that. That's probably a quick fix to improve ventilation in the shed. Another thing is, straw and more straw. You can't emphasize the importance of a dry bed. A calf spends a majority of his time lying down. So, like, you want that calf to be in a nice dry environment. Damp environment is going to obviously create bacteria and it's going to create issues. So, I suppose there are key areas to keep your calf healthy. But then for the farmer himself, look, the workload is going to be a busy time for farms. Calves arriving. There is various there's incentives there, to improve for farmers. There's grants available across the Thames, for milk carts and that will assist in the feeding of milk replacer. There is other various options there. We see farmers simple little things, like cordless drills and a mixer on it. They're using it to feed calves. It just takes a bit of the work out of the mixing of the milk. Some farmers purchased milk carts recently, and they find that's working very, very well for them in order to feed their calves. So simple little things like that. Other things we see farmers when they get calves out to grass, they might have a plastic meal bin and to fill the meal out of that, just to save dragging meal across the fields to calves. So simple little things like that, to try and cut back on the workload. It gives you more time for monitoring your calves for any signs of illnesses or disease.
Most definitely, particularly reducing labour and increasing safety in that system is very important, particularly with the heavy lifting and different back injuries, as you mentioned. Looking towards weaning, Tommy, what are the key weight targets that farmers should be targeting at weaning?
Yeah, look, they're probably simple enough targets what you want from your calf. Like, three rule of thumb targets. You want your calf to double his birth weight by 8 weeks. So you're buying a calf between 37 to 40 kilos. In 56 days, you want that calf close to 80 kilos if you can. And then roughly at 12 weeks of age, you want that calf 100 kilos. So in essence, they're doing probably 700 to 800 grams a day over that milk feeding phase. And then when you get him over that phase, you want to ensure that the rumen is correctly ready to go and he's able to digest grass. So maintaining that meal feeding at grass definitely for the first couple of weeks is hugely, hugely important. To ease the transition to that grass based diet. Generally, look at I suppose the summer scour, and that's probably it's a couple of months down the line yet. But offering your calves probably the lesser quality grass initially during the turnout phase, to further allow the adjustment of the rumen and get them to adjust to the grass diet.
Tommy, there are a number of events taking place across the country and webinars for farmers to be aware of for further information.
Currently, we have an ongoing set of calf care events being run in conjunction with Animal Health Ireland. So they're hosted every January to keep farmers informed on the best practices around husbandry and calf management. So the key areas that we're focusing on this year is calf health management. So similar topics that we discussed earlier, how to keep the calf healthy, on the dairy farm, and then maintain health across when he arrives onto the beef farm. Managing calves for sale. So what's the key areas dairy farmers need to manage their calves for sale, and then what the key areas the beef farmers should be looking for when purchasing dairy calves. We're looking at calf housing, that'll be in place on these farms. So what changes that can be made, I suppose, in a quick fix for farmers, for this calf rearing phase, and what's other key areas that we need to look at. And then we're looking at, the transition from the milk to grass, and that weaning, the whole aspect of weaning. So, the importance of developing the calves rumen, and the importance of concentrate feeding. So that's the key areas that we're discussing across the AHI and Teagasc events. And then we have two standalone DairyBeef 500 live webinars, which are taking place on Tuesday the 18th and Tuesday the 30th of January. And both of them webinars commence at 8 p.m. So look, the first webinar taking place on the 16th will focus on preparing for calf rearing in 2024. So on that webinar, we have a number of guest speakers. We have Martin Kavanagh from Munster Bovine. He'll be looking at preparing the calf housing for calf rearing. We also have Sarah Higgins from MSD who'll be looking at keeping the calf healthy during the calf rearing phase. We also have DairyBeef 500 program farmer Peter O'Hanrahan, so he'll add what he's experiencing on his farm. And then on the 20th, we'll look at sourcing and feeding the calf for 2024. So we have guest speakers there from Volak. We have Liam Gannon from Volak, and he'll be looking at the key areas around milk replacer and what's important during the calf feeding. We'll also have DairyBeef 500 farmer Charlie Smith, who'll be sharing his experience and what he'll be doing over the course of the calf rearing fair. So both of them webinars, there's links available across the Teagasc social media and on the Teagasc online website as well. So anyone looking to register, there's information there that can register easily.
That's great, Tommy. I'll include the links in the podcast text for anyone that's interested in attending any of the events across the country and some of those insightful webinars that you mentioned. Thanks very much, Tommy.
Thanks very much.
That's all for this week's episode, and you can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.